My name is Lady Liberty, and today I'm going to be talking about the book COVID-19, The Great Reset. Now, if you have no idea what this book is about and you'd like to read it, I'm going to have a link down below so you can read it online for free. Now, in this video, I'm also going to be discussing some of the things that are said in the book and pointing out things that I personally have found very disturbing and things that I do not think should be taken lightly. So to begin, in this book, the writer refers to COVID as a crisis that shouldn't go to waste. It says that because of COVID, governments have become more needed and they've become more powerful. The book says the governments will most likely decide that it's in the best interest of society to rewrite some of the rules of the game and permanently increase their role. Along with that, the book calls for the need for global governance. It says that we live in a world where no one is in charge, and that effective global governance can only be achieved with effective international cooperation. A vacuum of global governance and the rise of various forms of nationalism make it more difficult to deal with the outbreak. Now, I think regardless of where anyone stands on the political spectrum, we can all agree that the idea of global governance is unsettling. And the fact that this book is pushing so hard for global governance, saying that we absolutely need it, is very indicative of it also pushing the New World Order. Now, the book also talks a lot about global surveillance, and it says that we need global surveillance because of COVID. The book consistently refers to surveillance and contact tracing as essential. It says the containment of the coronavirus pandemic will necessitate a global surveillance network. It also goes on to glorify global surveillance and contact tracing by saying, "We will see how contact tracing has an unequaled capacity and an essential place in the armory needed to combat COVID-19, while at the same time being positioned to become an enabler of mass surveillance." It continues on with saying, "No voluntary contact tracing app will work if people are unwilling to provide their own personal data to the governmental agency that monitors the system." Now, personally, I'm very shocked that in this next quote, the writers have the audacity to say that tech surveillance will be beneficial for an individual's well-being and personal health. It says that it is true that in the post-pandemic era, personal health and well-being will become a much greater priority for society, which is why the genie of tech surveillance will not be put back into the bottle. With that being said, anyone who doesn't know the definition of a person's well-being, basically it's looking at a person on a holistic level. It's considering their emotional health, their social health, their physical health, and their mental health. Now, the book also talked about Asian countries and how they used contact tracing. It says the Confucianism prevalent in so many Asian countries places a sense of duty and generational solidarity before individual rights. It also puts a high value on measures and rules that benefit the community as a whole. So they're really trying to push the reader into this idea of a world without privacy and insisting that it's good for everyone. And if you disagree, you're selfish and you hate your community. The book also talks about lockdowns, saying that they showed us what we can give up in order to live greener. It says, our consumption patterns changed dramatically during the lockdowns by forcing us to focus on the essential and giving us no choice but to adopt greener living. This may last, prompting us to disregard everything that we do not really need, and putting into motion a virtuous circle for the environment. Likewise, we may decide that working from home when possible is good for the environment and our individual well-being. Commuting is a destroyer of well-being. The longer it is, the more detrimental it becomes to our physical and mental health. And again, I find it very disturbing that the book is trying to connect a person's well-being to things that have had and will have a negative impact on people's lives for such a long time. The majority of people have taken such a hit because they couldn't go to work anymore or because they have lost their business. And even though the book talks about the depression that the lockdowns have caused to an extent, it's still putting the lockdowns in a positive light. And this book is just full of anti-capitalism, communist bullshit, and keeps referring to things that are essential versus what isn't essential. The book also talks about social unrest, protesting, and whatnot. It says that youth activism is increasing worldwide, being revolutionized by social media that increases mobilization to an extent that would have been impossible before. The young generation is firmly at the vanguard of social change. there is little doubt that it will be the catalyst for change and a source of critical momentum for the Great Reset. Now, I'm sure that many of you are already aware that the big social media platforms will silence anything that doesn't go along with their narrative. And I'm really ashamed to say that my generation and the younger generations are so consumed with social media and what they see on it. And they believe anything that they see on social media without question. And there's so many other issues that I see that are just intertwined with the use of social media and how it's preparing the younger generations to accept the New World Order, but that's a completely different video for another time. So getting back to the book, it says, in one form or another, social and physical distancing measures are likely to persist after the pandemic itself subsides. It really makes me think about the pandemic, and it makes me think since the start of COVID, the only thing that I've really seen is panic. And I remember back in school when we would practice evacuations for some type of an emergency. And we were always told to remain calm, leave our belongings, and walk in a line together. And the reason that they told us this is because they know that panicking doesn't help the panicker. The only thing that panic really does is it produces fear. And when people are under this fear that COVID's going to kill them, COVID's going to kill their families, COVID's going to kill their friends, they can be controlled. They can be told that they have to shut down their businesses, that they have to social distance, that they can't be around their family or friends during the holidays, that they have to wear a mask, and if they don't wear a mask and buy into the panic, then they're selfish and they should be shamed. And again, the huge majority of society is buying into this crap because they are so paralyzed with fear that they will give up anything to feel safe. And going back to how the book ties the idea of well-being with global surveillance and the need for global government, this is them getting their hands into every aspect of people's lives. And it's getting to the point where we are losing our free speech and we're eventually going to lose all of our rights. And I think what a lot of people do not realize is that this past year has been about gaining control in people of every way possible, especially in America. And if you don't believe that, please just stop and use critical thinking for a moment. The government is in control financially. Many people are depending on money from the government because they were forced to shut down their business or they lost their job. The government is in control socially. They're silencing anything that doesn't go with their narrative, and they are controlling people, telling them that they cannot socialize with other people. And it's only a matter of time before it creeps in spiritually. And if you believe in the Bible, I'm sure you remember the prophecy in Revelation where it talks about a one world government, and it talks about how people are going to be marked with the mark of the wild beast on their right hand or their forehead. Otherwise, they cannot buy or sell items. Now, there are also two 2-minute videos that advertise the Great Reset. One specifically that comes to mind is the one that the royal family had put up. And I highly suggest that you watch them, and especially this one, because the one that the royal family posted, after showing the viewer some of the consequences of our current way of life, the video begins to show at, I think it's about 1 minute and 40 seconds, what should be heavily populated areas just completely empty. And again, I heavily encourage people to read this book and to tell other people, because at this point, it can't be called a conspiracy theory. This is what the globalists and the elite have been saying that they're going to do. And I'm going to make a call right now that eventually Biden, or should I say President-elect Harris, is going to reveal their plan for the Great Reset, or I should say the New World Order. And thank you for watching, and I'll try to continue to post videos. And remember that God gave us free will, and many people have died to preserve our freedom for us to exercise that free will.